Welcome to Northwest Guildford 2030. As a lifelong Guildfordian, I have a special interest in this part of the town, which has some challenges as well as many qualities to be proud of. What I want to do in this webinar is to introduce you to some of the key heroes behind the changes that are building momentum here, and show you all ways in which the community can pull together to build and realise a vision for Northwest Guildford. This is the area we are talking about. What should be striking from this map is that it's neatly excised from the rest of Guildford by the A3. The density of high-speed traffic rushing to and from London is giving us some real challenges in reconnecting Northwest Guildford to the rest of the town, as well as managing the more obvious problems of vehicle traffic, parking, and air pollution. As I walk about and talk to my friends in Northwest Guildford, I do notice the problem areas, of course. But I've also been struck by the positive sense of place and sense of movement to take this area back to the vitality it deserves. The support from Guildford Borough Council, Surrey County Council and the University of Surrey, for example, as well as many smaller interest groups such as Zero Carbon Guildford. But none of these initiatives will lead to a sustained change without the support of the community at large. And indeed, some of the most effective transformations have been community-driven. And these are what I want to focus on. King's College School has been a major success and really is a school for all of us to be proud of now. The principal, Alistair Mackenzie, and vice principal, Anna Wallace, took it from special measures to an Ofsted good in less than 2 years. Of course, the strong and inspiring leadership was essential, but what was also crucial was the staff, students and parents all worked together to achieve this, with a little help from their friends. As Alistair Mackenzie said when the classification of good was announced, "I've always believed in our students, in the skill and professionalism of the teachers and professionals at school, and in the passion and aspirations for our parents and the wider community." So, let's have a look at some of the other things that are going on. I want to take you first to Aldershot to meet some friends of mine, just to give an example of what can be done if the spirit is there. Now, this is Outpost Coffee. It's a cafe and it's also a post office combined and was a real community project that came good. Dan is the manager. Let's go there now. This is Northtown in Aldershot, and the building behind me wasn't doing very much for quite a while, and in fact it had become somewhat dilapidated. What happened was the local residents got together with Rushmore Borough Council and particularly their local ward councillors to suggest that they did something with it, and not just one thing but two, so make it a coffee shop but also a post office as well. So it was community coming together to make something happen. And that's what I spoke to local ward councillor Keith Dibble about.
This is Keith Dibble, councillor at Rushmore Borough Council, deputy Labour leader at the moment as well. Keith, the Northtown post office project, which is now up and running and everything is open and it's a combination of post office and a cafe in the heart of Northtown. Can you tell me how that all came about?
Yes, certainly, Peter. About 3 years ago, it was we had a meeting with the then sub postmaster, who told us, and myself and fellow ward councillors, that they were planning to sell the business and the building, which created a lot of interest to turn it into residential from developers. And we consulted with the local community through our Here for Northtown Facebook page, and there was a strong demand from the community for attention of a post office. So that started immediately. I contacted post office nationally and the council, Rushmore Borough Council, to try and put together a community post office. And we also included Vivid, the largest social housing provider in the ward. And we formed a group and worked exploring various opportunities or angles. We spoke to all the traders in Northtown to see if any of those would be prepared to house a post office. And they were keen, but didn't really have the space. I contacted the co-op through my friend and colleague Hazel Blears, who's the director of the post office, And she instructed their Southeast management team to look at the opportunities to see if the North Lane Post Co-op could house the post office. So we spent a lot of time looking for an alternative, with the view that maybe that the building would be sold for residential. The sale of that was taking a long time, and there was no real bid for the building. The postmaster at the time was struggling to pay the rent, so I and my fellow ward councillors contacted the chief executive at Rushmore. We liaised with the leader, and the council agreed to pay the rent of the building to the landlord for a 6-month period to enable us to view every opportunity to retain a post office in North Town. And during that process, Mr. Saki came to a surgery of ours, our weekly advice surgery, and said, "I'm looking to invest in a business in North Town." And we sort of said, well, the post office is available. And his eyes lit up. And some 9 months later, the post office reopened. But the joy was the whole of the community was behind the project. We had, from the administrative side, the local councillors and the council, the local housing association, but above all, the will of residents to want a post office. And every day on our social media page was, when will it reopen? Will it reopen? And we're pleased to say that working together, we achieved that.
So, as you say, it's now open. So you've there on a lovely corner of North Town. You've got a post office with a cafe, so that there's a community hub feel about it. And so, would it be right to say, from the way you've described it, that whilst clearly the council were hugely involved, and you as ward councillor and also your role in the council were clearly involved, it was necessary to have the want from the community and from the residents to make it happen?
Yeah, it would have been very easy to have run, I'm the local councillor, I want to save the post office. That wasn't the campaign. The campaign was the community wants that very important facility for them to use. North Town, and you've been a visitor there, I'm pleased to say, is a mixture of, some very expensive houses, but also lots of people in social housing who tend to be on lower incomes or being supported with many, they're the ones that require a top up from the state to supplement their income. The nearest post office is in the town centre, which is a 15-minute bus ride away. And there's also a number of businesses there that require the use of the post office. So the strongest tool we had as local councillors in the argument or discussions with the council and the post office was the demand and desire of local people to have the post office. Without that, it would have just been a political campaign that failed. But it wasn't a party political campaign, it was a community campaign. And I think, as you saw at the grand opening, there was real community love and support for the project.
Yes, there was certainly some huge engagement and a real sense of joy, actually, I thought, that it had opened. Keith, finally, what's your advice to people who are wanting to make a change, to make things better, to improve surroundings, situations, circumstances in their own community, whether it be North Town or elsewhere? As someone that's been involved in local public service like you have for many decades, what's your advice as we look further into the 21st century and really post this awful pandemic we've had?
I think all projects can be achieved with a sort of bottom upwards approach. You've got to get the community behind it. You've got to get those champions of the community, and we as local councillors, I think first thing you have to do as a local councillor is to cross through the party politics, dismiss that. You're there as the shop steward or the champion of your community, work with those community leaders and ensure that a project doesn't get bogged down in red tape and administration, That's the role of local councillors and the odd community leader to bang the table at the appropriate meeting. But you need the support of residents and the community, whether it be a playground, whether it be a community planting exercise, whatever. Because at the end of the day, politicians will make the decision to release funding. But if you've got a community behind it, working together, doesn't have to be formal, it can just be an ad hoc group of people, get the odd letter written and such things, but invite those decision makers down to your community, invite them in, show them what it is and what you want to do. All too often, good projects have failed because the men in grey suits have made the decision in a meeting room in the council offices without really understanding what that community need is. So shout loud, lobby, but above all, have that strong community spirit, which is very difficult to turn down.
Keith, thank you very much.
Back to Northwest Guildford now and the Park Barn Centre. Well, the Park Barn Centre is actually, of course, now known as The Hive and is operated by Guildford Borough Council and is an amazing place. The community wellbeing team is based there, Tracy James and Ben Carter, and they're real local heroes and have been key in making it the thriving centre that it is today. There are all sorts of activities, including a very popular Art for All learning programme run by the Watts Gallery. But let's take a look at the Community Fridge project that's based there.
Hello there, so here we are at the Hive. Used to be the Park Barn Community Centre, but now it is a thriving place, right at the heart of the community. Everything from Thrive at the Hive, also various other services that people can come along for, and also the Community Fridge, which is what I caught up with Councillor Julia McShane about.
So talking now to Julia McShane from Guildford Borough Council and lead member for the community, amongst other things. And Julia, specifically, the Guildford Fridge was an idea that came about, I know, a little while ago, but is now in full flow. Can you just tell us a little bit about the fridge?
Yeah, the community fridge is based at the Hive, which used to be called the Park Barn Centre in Park Barn. And it's a fantastic idea to have the fridge in place so that people can bring food along to put into the fridge if they've got spare food at home, if they're going on holiday or something. And we're also getting food from some of the local supermarkets. And then the idea is that that food can be shared with other people who might need to have some of it and take it away. And it's also about stopping food waste, because obviously that's a really serious thing at the moment. We must, we shouldn't waste a lot of food or anything really. So it's good to be able to share things amongst people in the community.
So it's actually it's addressing two situations really. Obviously, those people that are in need of the actual food, but as you say, in terms of stopping the waste aspect. So it's a sort of double whammy really. When it came into formation, and I know there were various discussions that involved the university, the community, Guildford Borough Council. It seemed to, from what I can gather, seemed to take off, and people just thought, gosh, this is a great thing to have.
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean, it's a while ago now that I recall being part of some conversations with the university and the council when I was a ward member, and they were looking for some kind of collaboration with the university, the community and the council. And obviously the community fridge is the thing that came out of it. And I think Guildford Philanthropy were also involved with funding as well. And so, yeah, that's how it came about. And because we were starting to create a community hub at the Park Barn Centre, this was the best place to put it.
And in terms of how it's run then, so how does that work then? What sort of how do things get patrolled, and who decides that?
Well, I think the supermarkets offer food to the community fridge, and we're able to use some of our community transport vehicles to go and collect it and bring it back to the centre to be added to the stock, as it were. And the fridge is actually managed by some of our community engagement team, and also some young people from local schools who are also involved in it, because obviously young people are very interested in climate change and cutting down on waste and things like that, and they want to be involved in their community. So everybody's working together to make sure that the fridge is kept going, kept running.
So it's a really good example, isn't it, of a community initiative that not only, of course, addresses, as we've already spoken about, at least two areas of life and society, but suddenly starts gaining momentum because others are interested or get interested or have an interest in that sort of initiative. It's a good example of that, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think the most important thing is that anything that happens in any community must involve that community. That is the most important thing, because if it doesn't, then it really won't be successful. It will be something actually that's done to a community rather than people working together to create something for everybody. And that's something that, I'm really keen on, that communities work together, and other, stakeholders work with communities too, so that everybody contributes, and everybody can feel that it's a part of their community, and they can be a part of that initiative.
Apart from your senior position at Guildford Borough Council, as you said, that you are a ward councillor for the area. When you're talking to people, either at the council or indeed bodies that you deal with in a council capacity, do you use the fridge as an example of something and goes, well, look, that's what we've done in this ward? There may be other learnings and borrowings that we can take for elsewhere in the community as well.
Yes, I do talk about it quite a bit because I'm so excited about it, because it's such a great example of what can happen when people work together. And I think the other really important thing for me actually about the fridge is that I think often they're viewed as, a project that's going to help the poor, the people that can't afford the food. And whilst that's true, and they do that, I think for me it's really important that we also understand that the fridge is not about one group of people doing something to another. It's about everybody. So in actual fact, the people that are coming to take things out of the fridge, for whatever reason they're taking them, they are actually stopping food going to waste. And that is really valuable. And I just think it's really important that we remember that, everybody is important, and everybody that's taking part in this initiative is contributing something of great value.
Julia, thank you very much indeed.
You'll have noticed that plants and gardens are an important part of the hive. And as I talk to more people in Northwest Guildford, young and old, this is a recurring theme and something we really want to build on, as it's a very positive way to help build a sense of place and well-being across the community. This has been particularly strong at the award-winning Cathedral View Community Garden. Let's go there now and find out a bit more about it and how it came to be.
And here we are at the Cathedral View Community Garden, a big partnership project between local residents, Guildford Borough Council, Aspire, and also the University of Surrey. I spoke to Ian Main from the university, but ahead of that, I spoke to one of the most active residents involved in making the garden become possible, and that was Darren Griffin.
Darren Griffin and the Cathedral View Garden. Darren, can we talk about the idea of getting the garden together and where that came from?
Yeah, sure. The original approach came to me from a lady who's now part of the Guildford Borough Council, but at the time she was local borough council to us, Julia McShane. She asked if I would attend a meeting that included Ross Kelway from the Surrey University and Aspire team from the local Barn Community Centre, with the challenge of finding or having a plot of land that we could convert from a waste space never used into something that could be a useful and usable place for the community to get involved with, basically. They asked for local residents' assistance, and I put my hand up along with my wife, Karen, and we attended the meeting, and we gave our ideas across to the team.
So how did the project develop from there? Because I mean, there were different motivations behind it as well, and it became a legacy project, really, didn't it?
It has done over time, and it's been very kind of people, been very complimentary about the way the project began, has rolled out, and has continued since, to be fair, PG. In terms of where it started to where it is, it has moved. Originally, we were going to try and put a sensory type garden in so that it had access to all. So perhaps if vulnerable children wanted to go up and feel and touch and smell, but then we developed that more into a community garden. We still got some of the sensory stuff, but we got the local schools to do murals on 2 of the walls that we've got up there. And one of the local residents at the time was suffering with terminal cancer. So we decided that instead of making it a community, we would dedicate the garden in her memory, so that her young son and her family had a place to come and just sit and enjoy the fruits of the local community who put that together in her memory. So that's where we kind of ended up with it. And obviously it is a community garden. We encourage anybody who wants to come up and get involved, just turn up, do a bit of gardening, contact us via the Facebook page, or however, or knock on our door and say, can we get involved? Can we do this? And we fully encourage that.
And in terms of obviously the way that that people now use it and enjoy it, the feedback that you get, presumably, it just makes all what happened worthwhile.
I think the thing that both my wife and I were very, very adamant about was that we wanted a space that we felt that, I mean, our children are slightly older these days, but we felt that, children, young and old, can go along and they can sit and enjoy. Or if you're more senior year, you can go up there, sit there with a cup of tea. There's bench, the university made a lovely little bench there, and you can just sit there and absorb the view. I mean, the view from the garden, which overlooks the cathedral, is quite stunning. And if you get a nice fresh morning or a beautiful sunny day, it is somewhere to go and be with your thoughts, just to relax, just to unwind from a day at work, at the office, if that's what you want to do, or just to go and pot around and do a bit of planting and watch the flowers grow. It's a great little space, so we are very proud of it, to be fair.
And rightly so. And once again, a message from you, I presume, therefore, that if there is a project in the offing, or if there was something that could happen to make things better, whatever that looks like for someone, because of course that depends on how people want to make things better, but it does just take a little bit of teamwork to get something done.
Yeah, I mean, obviously over time people have come to my wife and I and said to us about the project, but we're only one part of the chain. Without people like Ross Kelway from the university and the team of Ian and his guys who come and assisted, to the fabulous team, the Aspire team, Tracy and all her co-workers, and even the schools, everybody involved in the project plays a part. This is not about my wife and I's community garden. This is everybody's garden. So the local residents that do come along and spend an hour wandering around, potting and doing a bit of planting, that's important too. So we may be the spearheads, if you like, or we're the contact point for the garden, but the garden is literally for everybody. It's very important that everybody gets involved. Otherwise, it's just a space that's now not as messy as it once was. So people to come and use it, enjoy it, get involved if they want to, that's what it's all about.
Darren, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
So Ian Main, the Assistant Sports and Landscape Manager at the University of Surrey. Ian, your role obviously involves a lot of things, but I know you've been involved in the Cathedral View Garden project, its instigation and indeed its development and continued success. Has it been everything that you hoped it would be?
It has, yeah. It's been a great success for us at the university. And we were looking for public engagement projects and opportunities through Northwest Guildford. And this one had come up as a piece of ground that we thought we could help the local community. We could design a garden. We could get our university departments involved, our university teams, and our students involved. So yeah, it's been everything that we would want it to be. It's been a good success for us.
And welcomed with open arms, I understand, and indeed, as we know, by residents, by those in the community, because it's something that's really been an addition, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. I mean, I was overwhelmed by the support that we got through from the community. I've done a lot of community-based stuff in that part of Guildford, both with scouting organisation and Cubs, and local football. But this one had a real local feel to it, and we had a lot of people come out to help us, which was fantastic on the day. We had a little bit of rain, as we always do, but they stuck with it, and yeah, been a great project.
Do you think this sort of project, this sort of coming together of people, is just the sort of thing that, you know, when you've got the university in a community as you do in that part of Guildford, just the sort of thing that should be happening? Is it something you want to see more of?
Definitely something I think we should do more of. I lived locally in that part of Guildford for a long time, and it's nice to see these projects. Great to see the ideas coming together, and then actually trying to finish the project off with the engagement of all the local stakeholders. It was really good.
Do you think that the instigation of something like this, does it have to come from one person or one organization, or is it something that can evolve almost organically?
And that's a difficult question. What I have found is key is the neighbourhood and the buy-in from them. That part of it for me was absolutely key, and that's what we got in this project. Been involved in a few other projects. Yes, we can facilitate as a university, but if the ideas come from what the clients want or what the neighbourhood wants, I think that's the best way to go.
So would you encourage people to make more suggestions going forward?
I think that's probably the best way, actually. Yeah. If third parties come to the university and get involved with our local engagement officers and say, you know, we've got this idea, we've got this project, you know, would you be able to help us? I think that would be a better way of doing it. Yeah.
Ian, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So that covers some specific projects, but there is a lot more going on. And before we close, let's hear a few words from Sarah Jane Chimbwandira, the CEO of the Surrey Wildlife Trust. Now, the Surrey Wildlife Trust has taken an active interest in some of the green spaces in northwest Guildford for many years, and with their now increasing focus on bringing biodiversity back into urban areas, this interest will increase. You might be slightly surprised to know that an analysis of satellite images of the area by the University of Surrey showed that the existing level of tree cover throughout the open spaces and gardens of northwest Guildford qualifies the area to be designated as forest. It is indeed an urban forest in the best of senses, but let's hear what Sarah Jane has to say about what we can all do moving forward.
Sarah Jane, can we just start off by talking about your thoughts around a community that perhaps wants to better itself, but doesn't necessarily have natural resources on its doorstep, but can still do something?
Well, yes, Peter, of course. I mean, I think the most important thing for me is to recognise that communities do have the power and the ability to actually change their local areas. We have 4 crises at the moment. You'll have heard me say before, we have a biodiversity crisis, a climate crisis, a health crisis, and an economic crisis. And that can feel really overwhelming because they're all global problems. But actually, the solutions are local. We can deliver nature at a local level, and people have the opportunity to actually, whether it is rewilding their front garden, not mowing their lawn during May to let the wildflowers come up, whether it is putting in little houses for our pollinators, our bees and our bugs. There are things that we can all do in our own spaces at home.
Do you think that educating ourselves about outdoors, and wherever that outdoors may be, by the way, so there may be a building next door, that's your outdoor, but there's still other things around it going on?
Absolutely, there's so much that we can do. I mean, one of the things that we did a couple of years ago with Surrey Wildlife Trust was we had a wildflower garden in the high street. We actually built that garden. We had loads of interest on the day. And after the event was finished, we donated that wildflower garden to King's College in Guildford. And I think a really important part of what we do is making sure that our younger generations know that nature is important to them, and actually how to deliver nature in their own homes and their own school grounds and their own local gardens.
You were just talking about the King's College garden there, that aspect there. How easy is it for someone just to go, right, hang on a second, I've woken up today, I feel like I need to do something that greens things a little bit more around me. Couple of tips literally you could do in a day.
Well, the first thing is, don't have your garden being too tidy. A tidy garden is not a wildlife friendly garden. So if you were thinking that day, well, I'll go and tidy up all the leaves, then I would say don't. Leave the leaves there and let wildlife use that as a refuge. So that's a really easy one. And the other thing you could do is not mow your lawn. So not mow the whole of the lawn and leaving things to flower, so allowing things to set seed for a little bit longer. That's so important for our pollinator species because they really need flowering things all the way through the season so that they have food and resting sites during the day.
Do you think that there is also more of a cause these days, particularly bearing in mind that people are thinking more now around the climate change, the challenge that brings? At least we're certainly hearing more about that. Do you think people have enough at their own disposal to try and do something to help right now?
Yeah, and I think it's really important for people not to feel that it needs to cost lots of money to get involved, because actually anybody can make a difference. We can all change our own behaviours to address matters such as climate change. For example, walking to the shops rather than getting in a car and driving makes a huge difference. So there are things that we all have the ability to do. Not using single-use plastics, for example. All of these things might feel like small changes, but they all add up to make a big difference to our environment. But I think most people have the ability to make a difference. Even if you don't have a lot of space at home, put in a window box, grow a few herbs or shrubs or flowers in your window box. That will make a difference. Go and volunteer with a local community group and look after your community green space. That will make a difference. So we do all have that ability at a local level to put in place solutions for nature.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So there we have it. When I talk to people in northwest Guildford, I do hear about lots of problems and concerns, and there is clearly a lot of work to be done here. But what I wanted to show in this webinar is that there is a gathering momentum of good things. There's also lots to be proud of, so let us move forward to 2030 with a strong commitment to making northwest Guildford a very special place.